Welcome back to the Road Dog Project. This is Don Muzquiz and my canine co-host Leon. Thanks to Celebrity Coaches, we are back with part 2 of our conversation with touring audio engineer BUFORD Jones. We jump back in where BUFORD is discussing his time with Pink Floyd.
So it gave me a certain amount of confidence in that I felt that I could express myself once I had got their foundation intact.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things, if you listen to their records, you might, when we listen to it live, you might hear reverbs and things that weren't on the record.
Absolutely.
Or you might hear an echo that wasn't on this or that, or this or that, this and that. Because I felt that in the, and especially as it progressed and I learned the music so much better, it just enhanced it. That's all I know to say. It just enhanced it.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to do something that somebody else didn't do. It just enhanced it. And then in listening to show tapes with John Karen, well, then there it goes.
Yeah.
So to say the show tape thing, I could explain technically another time if you like why and how to do that. But we had gone, I think, almost a year into the tour. It was 2 years. And I remember in Berlin, never forget it, never forget a lot of moments off that. I went down, we always stayed really, really nice hotels, and I'd go down for breakfast, and David was sitting at a table having breakfast by himself, so I, of course, sat down with him, and we're talking, and, well, actually, let me step it back a little bit. It was about a month before that I think from bad experiences of him listening to show tapes on previous years and days and what, that he didn't feel that was an accurate way, and
He didn't care to talk about it after the show.
But John and I built this thing up to a point to where it was really good. And I think using some, for show tapes, and I think for using a lot of these things in mind, technically, how to do that, John just stepped me up. And then John would hear my effects and said, man, that's really good. Keep that in there. And that's really good. But you got to get this part in here. So, at any rate, we'd gone through, and we were riding on a bus with Pink Floyd, because I remember the bus. It was just going back and forth from the gig to the hotel. And it was a long ride. We were some way out in the country at a festival of some sort. And John and I are in the back of the bus, and David comes back, and it's almost a year into the tour. And David just happens to walk back. I said, hi, what are y'all doing? I said, oh, we're listening to the show tape. He says, can I hear it?
Okay.
Yeah. And so he took it, started listening. I had it on a DAT at that time, a nice Sony portable DAT. And we got to the hotel, and he just gets up with the phone still on him and just goes up to his room with my DAT and my player. And I thought, wow, am I going to have a plane ticket home in the morning or what? And he come back the next morning and was extremely complimentary. Nice. And I went, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
It helps some security again, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that, wow, if you've got something to tell me, do it. So this went on. I think a couple more weeks later, we finished the gig, kind of the same situation, and he said, I think we really played good tonight. I'd like to hear that. And I said, sure. So I gave him that night, and he listened to it. Yeah. Now we go to Berlin, which is a few weeks later. We go to Berlin, and I go downstairs to have breakfast with him, and he just pops up and says, hey, we're going to do an album. We're going to do a live album on this tour. We're going to record it in New York City, and you're going to mix it. Just like that.
Just told you.
You're going to mix it. And I knew that it was from our past experience. I knew that him listening to those recordings had something to do with it, and the way that he complimented them. And because that's not the case, it happens, but it's not the majority of cases where the live sound engineer mixes a major live record.
Exactly.
And ended up, I did everything. No producer over me, no other engineers over me.
Said Abbey Road.
Abbey Road for 6 weeks. So I know that that has to do with that. So, and that liberty he gave me, and then the creativity that I was able to add my part of the deal. So, yeah, that paid off.
Incredible.
That paid
Well,
off.
again, like I mentioned at the beginning, mixing all the live concerts and then being able to do the live record as well. Huge in their career that you contributed to.
Well, it's never made sense to me. I won't elongate on that and let you go to the next question.
Oh, that's all right.
But I see a lot of artists in the near thing that, they'll do a live album and then they'll have a studio engineer come in and mix it. And I go like, man, one, you weren't even there. Two, there's an element to this that we're trying to reproduce. You know, if you're going to make this thing polished in a way that, or maybe not, who knows?
Yeah.
But I think a live engineer should mix live records for an artist if he's been doing a good job, he or she.
Yeah. Well, while we're talking about conversations with the artists that impacted you, let's talk a little bit about David Bowie.
David Bowie.
You tried to turn that down.
I did, because I had a completely wrong illusion of him from what I had seen in pictures and, you know, reading material and this and that. And I'd been out with Leonard Skinner and ZZ Top at the time that I was introduced to Bowie. And I was heavy into Southern rock. I mean, you give me a Les Paul and it'll be down below my waist like Billy. And I love to play Leonard Skinner stuff. I don't do it well, but I love to play it. And deeply embedded in Southern rock. And so I got the call from Shoko, the secretary there, that said, "Hey, we're getting the David Bowie tour, and you'll be going out with it." And I said, "No, I'm not." He's like, "Yes, you are." And I said, "No, I'm not." I said, "The pictures that I've seen of him, I just don't think we would maybe, you know, he might need somebody else." And so she said, "Yes, you are." And then Jack Maxson called me up. I guess she told that to Jack, because he called me up a couple hours later and said, "You're going out with David Bowie." And okay, all right. So what had happened is that David's tour, the Diamond Dogs tour, 74,
was already
been
going
out for a few months. Well,
it was already going.
It was already going, ongoing. And they had, I don't know how that sound system got chosen for that. It was an all-union setup, traveling union setup. And it was pathetic. And they realized that, so they needed to make a change, and I got selected for the call. So when I went out, I watched it one night in Akron, Ohio, I think, and then I mixed it the next night in Pittsburgh at the Syria Mosque. Well, after watching it in Ohio, and I thought, wow, this is amazing.
It's not what you expected.
It was a real theatrical.
Yeah.
You know, the band was off in a corner and all these props and all these things going on. And I was amazed with it. And after the show was over with, the manager came and got me and said, "Come on back, let's meet David." And I said, "Oh, just tell him I'm here." I was terrified. And I'd met a lot of artists before.
Yeah.
And I was just terrified to meet him for some reason. And we walked into his dressing room. He was doing, I don't know what he was doing, but he stopped whatever he was doing and come over and shook my hand, said my name, "Welcome, Buford. It's so nice to have you here."
Wow.
That was the warmest welcome I think anybody ever gave me. I mean, just an immediate shift in what I had thought this guy may be like. I was meeting an absolute genius. Yeah. And he, you know, we sat down and talked just like friends, like we had known each other for years. I think the remarkable thing, and I still have it now in my possession, but he went over and brought a book to me, and it was a manila folder book that had I think around 15 pages in it. It had all the songs in the show, and it had the lyrics. It had the secretary type out all the lyrics. Now, see, this fit me perfect for the way I like to organize for the music. The sound system, okay. You engineers, you do this, you know this, I'll trust you, I'll help you, and I might criticize you or I might compliment you, but this is what I'm talking about, the music. So here it was, all the lyrics written out, and in his handwriting, with a small felt marker, he'd write notes. Emphasize the mellotron, emphasize this, cathedral reverb on this, and do this, and make these loud, and do this. And I'm going through this page. I said, you did this? And he says, I thought it'd help you because you didn't have rehearsals. You didn't have the benefit of rehearsals. And not only that, he had put the names of the albums that those songs came off of.
Wow.
So if I wanted to get the albums, which they sent them to me, I could go and listen from the studio cut version. And I thumbed through these, and I just can't believe it. And I said, I just can't believe you did this. And he says, well, he said, if it doesn't work, or if you try these things, he said, it's nothing but a suggestion on my part. He said, if it doesn't help, don't do it. And you do what you need to do. You do whatever you want to do. I think the first night it was scary, and there was one cue that was in the book. That I was to start a tape cue while he's suspended out over the audience on a little chair singing Space Oddity, and I'm supposed to hit a certain tape cue, and I hit the wrong one. He was kind of stranded out there playing something that's totally irrelevant to the song. But I went back and I apologized to him. I went straight to the dressing room and apologized to him. He said, stop. He said, it is so much better than what it was. You've got a big headway for any mistakes that you might make. Don't worry about it.
Wow.
So I went, cool. And he would come out and sit down with us and all the crew, at sound checks and walk around and talk with everybody. And I just thought, what an incredible artist. And I really enjoyed it. I did all of his tours throughout the 70s. And then I think that was 4. And then I don't know, scheduling happened, and I missed Serious Moonlight and Glass Spiders. I was out with somebody else. And then I'll just try to make this brief. Now I'm doing Pink Floyd.
Right.
89, we're playing Lausanne, Switzerland, and outdoors. And I have a very strict rule, and I'm talking about this again, being interrupted as a sound mixer. And, you have people come up, talk to you, managers, whatever, this or that. And I have a police caution yellow tape around me. I'll talk to you 22 hours of the day, but don't talk to me during the show. I don't care what it is. I'm sure it's valuable, but I got 22 hours of the day to talk. When this band plays, if you come out and talk to me, why don't you go walk right out on the stage and talk to the guitar player in the middle of the show?
Right.
And tell him he needs to do something.
I'm working.
Why don't you just go up and stop the lead singer from singing? Tell him that, why don't you play this again in a different key? What are you doing? I mean, what we do out there is that work and should not be interrupted. So anyway, I I had this thing just not to be interrupted, and so we're at Pink Floyd at Lausanne, and then the system engineer, I had 5 guys out there all together, and the system engineer comes up to me, and because I would not take phone calls or talk back to the stage during the show.
Intercom,
thank you. And Steve comes up to me and said, Buford, you need to take this call. I said, Steve, don't. And he says, you really need to take this call. Hello? And as soon as he said Buford, I knew his voice so well. I knew who it was, and it's David Bowie. I'm sitting here mixing Pink Floyd, and got David Bowie on the phone. And I'm going, David, what are you doing? And he said, I live here. And he said, I came down for the show, and I'm watching it from the stage, and I asked him who was mixing, and they said, you were.
Wow.
And he said, I want to say hello. And I go, wow. And he goes, what are you doing when this tour's over with? I said, I don't know.
Yeah.
And he says, well, I'm going out. Will you go out with me? And I said, yeah, let's talk about it. And that was it. Was, I got to go, bye.
Yeah, that's a story that not too many people can tell. Being on the phone with David Bowie while mixing Pink Floyd.
That's, while mixing Pink Floyd, yeah.
That's a quote you need to...
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I know you've talked about writing a book. You still considering writing a book?
My hand gets so tired. I mean, I just can't do it.
Well, maybe you can get somebody to do it for you.
I've had a lot of people do it for me, and it seems like, I don't know why, it always melts. It never gets done, and it is. So many people tell me it's such a monumental time, I think, in live touring and the growth of live touring, and from the 70s, you know, 70s. Trying to say Comstock, Woodstock. You know, just changed. I mean, the whole industry and the way things would be done, and size of festivals and touring, and so it really started mounting up. More and more sound companies coming up with new gear and new ways to produce sound. So it was a very growing time, and I guess that's what it was. That just. You know, so much to be there, and that's why I try to. I don't know where to start a lot of times.
Yeah,
I don't know where to.
So many different stories and so many different places.
You know, I'm so fortunate, so blessed. I cannot say it. How when I made that change in my career to get real close to the artist without being overwhelming. I don't want to be nagging them all the time. I don't want to be saying a lot of stuff. I want to get to the point, be done with it. I'm here for you, and then give them their space. And so
well, that'd be a great idea if you put something like that together.
Yeah.
You mentioned Prince in there, and with you communicating with artists and things like that, he was notorious for not wanting to talk to his crew. Were you able to have some of those conversations?
We had I don't know, maybe 5 or 6, and they were probably less than 2 sentences. His.
Right.
I was ready to talk, and it was very disappointing to me because of the things that I've talked about earlier.
Sure.
I really wanted to know him, and I don't know that I've ever seen a more talented entertainer. He just blew my mind away, and what a great tour and show at Purple Rain.
Yeah.
So, and here I had the opportunity to mix this and brought in to do it, and you know, I think this is incredible, but yet never introduced to him.
Yeah.
And one thing led to another, and I stayed out a month as a consultant. That's how I got the call. This tour was another one in progress. I don't remember how long it had been out. I think just a few months, a month. And it was just not happening to a lot of people's things. So I get the call to come out as a consultant, straighten it out. They either wanted the attempt to straighten it out. They either didn't know if it was the sound system or the sound mixer.
Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, I wanted to know the sound mixer and be able to speak with him, who was a studio engineer, a very reputable studio engineer, very qualified.
Yeah.
And, but studio engineers, when they come out on the road, they tend to take a little bit more time in given areas. There's a thing about live mixing, you got to constantly scan. You can't spend a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. It's turn a knob, and then in time you'll realize if you turned it too much. But you're not seeing the rest of everything that's happening. So anyway, I think that might have been one of his issues, but they wouldn't let me talk to him.
Yeah.
So they said, we want you to mix this cold turkey. And I said, I don't know the solos. I don't know, you know, the effects and all this. They said, we just want you to mix this. I said, okay. And what had happened, there's a video camera that's out front. So he does what I've been talking about, and I thought that was cool. He videotapes the show, and he sees the lighting, and then he gets the audio from the console.
Yeah.
Well, when I was sat down to the console, it had we looked at settings, and this was a Showco tour, and several Showco engineers were out, and one pointed to me that mix going to that camera was coming off of a matrix.
Oh.
And I thought, why in the world would you do that?
Yeah.
Now maybe a studio engineer had something in mind, but that means he's constructing a separate mix than what's going to the house. And I said, get rid of that.
Yeah.
And I said, I want him to hear what I do, so come off stereo. And so I did this show. And I got to say, it all worked out really good for me at the time, for what I was expecting, or what I could do with something I've never heard before. It's like mixing that David Bowie show, cold turkey, rehearsals. And because this is a great band.
Yeah.
It's a great band. I like to put this, and I'm going to get back to this Prince thing.
It's okay.
Cab driver picked me up in New York City roughly around 1977, asked me what I was doing in New York City as they interrogate you, taking you into town in New York City. And I said, I mix sound for live concerts. He says, who do you mix? I said, Linda Ronstadt. He goes, Mama bakes the cake and you serve it. And I thought, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, he had to be a musician. I mean, I don't know. I don't remember asking him, but that's going to be the name of my book if there ever is.
There you go.
So this is what's happening here. There's a great band on stage.
Yeah.
I don't have to do a whole lot.
Yeah.
It's already happening. You know, you just deliver it to your audience. So, and it all came off really good. I was able to get a really good drum sound, and basically, you know, we heard everything. I was so impressed with his moves and all he was doing and the songs. Wow. The manager was one of the first ones to come up to me after when the show finished. He says, man, that is great. That's the first time I've heard the bass guitar. He said, that's the first time I've heard the drums intact. He says, I know now it's not the PA.
Right.
I says, well,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
I said, you assess it however you need to, and you let me know what I can do.
Yeah.
I didn't want this guy to lose his job. I don't want to take anybody's job.
Yeah.
And so even the Showco crew was coming up and says, man, it's never sounded like that. And I said, well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Great. I'd had truck drivers who, you know, as they come down early and they'll stand out the console.
Sure.
Wow, man. Okay, well, this is great. This is great. I'm liking all this, but okay, cool.
Yeah.
So we're playing the second of two shows at Buffalo Arena, New York, and go in the next day, and I understand I'm going to get a sound check, you know. So great. And Sheila E. was opening, and so the manager comes up to me. Just as the band arrived, the manager comes right out and he says, hey, I got to talk to you. And he said, I've never been yelled at so long, so loud, in front of so many people from Prince as I did last night about you. And he says he'll never let you mix a sound.
Really?
I says, well, I'm as confused as I can be, you know. I had live witnesses. That's all I know. You know, it's not documentation or somebody writing down and you reading it in a newspaper, and you among them all. He says, I don't know what to say, but he will not ever let you mix a sound. And I says, well, you got my plane ticket home? I said, I can go get some other gigs.
Yeah.
Hate this, but, you know. Yeah. And he said, I don't know what to do. So I thought about it a minute. I says, you know, I made the sound system sound better for you, right? Absolutely. And I said, all right, you liked what I did in setting it up, okay? Why don't I do the sound checks and get the system sounding good for you and let your other guy mix? He said, that's a great idea. Expensive idea, because he had an assistant and I had an assistant. So there's four of us that do nothing but
front of house.
And he said, that's a great idea. So he ran off backstage, come back a while later, let's do that. All right. So I started conducting a sound check. Now typically, and most engineers know, a lot of times we like to do a line check before the band walks out with, you know, the we don't necessarily have the players at that time. And so I just got on the talk back, and I said, I need to go through the drums right quick. Somebody hit the kick drum for me. And I'm kind of, doing things, and I hear thump, 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 thump. Okay, snare drum. Okay, hi-hat. And then my assistant comes over to me, and he taps me on the shoulder and said, do you realize that's Prince hitting him? We're in a big arena, and I'm far from it all. Yeah, wow. It is. Cool. And I have a set rule in my sound checks, and I usually tell the musicians this, from the ones who, especially a drummer, I say, I need snare drum, and he hits it 4 times. Is that enough?
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you when it's enough, and I'll always say thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, that's how you know that I've got enough. So let's make that clear. And Prince was doing just that. Nice. I'd say hi-hat, he'd keep hitting it until I say stop. Wow. And all right, I need tom. Doom, 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 doom. Tom, doom, cymbals, that. I said, all right, I need time. Play me some time with no fills. Yeah. And he'd do it. I said, all right, now play the same thing, but give me some fills every 4 bars so I could. Yeah. Yeah, I got my gradation. I think the way I wanted. And so I said, I need to hear this with the bass player. I want to set my kick with the bass. So he got up. This is unbelievable. In my eyes, he got up, went over, picked up the bass guitar, went back to the drum kit, set down the drum kit, holding the bass guitar, and started this amazing thing. Not only was he playing the bass guitar and the kick drum at the same time, but listen to that.
Wow.
It was just cool as could be, some funk thing,
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I want to hear some keyboards with that. What are you going to do now?
Yeah, let me see that.
That would have got a laugh out of anybody. It didn't get a laugh out of him. But he went over and played the keyboards, and then he played guitar. And whatever I asked him to do, he'd play these individual instruments and do what he does. So he, after this was all done, and I got everything, I said, all right, I need the full band. I led the whole thing. He didn't say a word. And he went through everything with me like that.
Really?
There wasn't a wasted second.
Wow.
And so I said, I need the full band. And then he made the motion to somebody go get the band. He'd bring them up. And then he walked to the microphone. This was one of the conversations. And he said, if I ever hear as much reverb on my guitar as I did last night on Purple Rain, we're going to box.
He said this on the mic.
Yeah. And I said, is he talking to me? I said, yeah, he's talking to you. Reverb on his guitar. I don't know what you're talking about. I might have had some reverb on it, but not overwhelming. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So one of the Shoko engineers pops himself in the head, walked around to the back of the console, and saw that Matrix sin went to that video.
Oh.
And it was completely unattended by me.
Right.
I didn't even look at it.
Wow.
And when I did look at it, of the 8 sections,
right,
his guitar was way down, and the reverb returns
was way up.
Way up. I looked at that thing, and I said, that must have sounded so bad that anybody would know something is wrong.
Right.
And to an artist like that, that's all there has to be.
Yeah.
Excuses don't help. Excuses don't help.
Yeah.
He knew I didn't mix that show like that.
Yeah.
Or should have known.
Yeah.
And, well, that's a good lesson to do it yourself when you have these things to do. But then it all came clear what he had heard.
Right.
And so he walked back to the microphone and said, okay, Mr. Wizard, what's next? And I said, okay, play this, play that.
Yeah.
And we played it. Well, after the show was over, he had walked out front. We're about done with this one. And he had walked out front, and he had his 2 big bodyguards with him, all in big fur coats. And they sat down in the arena for a minute, and I walked over to them. And I had not been introduced to him, but I walked over to him. And as I'm walking to him from a direction like that, as he's sitting like this and his bodyguards like this, of course, they both stood up. And I walked up and I offered out my hand. I says, Prince, my name is BUFORD Jones. And I said, I have no excuses whatsoever for what you heard last night. And I just want to comment on it. I'm sorry that it happened. And I says, I just want you to know that I'm here to deliver your sound the best it can possibly be delivered by me to your audience. And then he went, still wouldn't look at me, but he put his hand up. So,
okay.
Nice chatting with you. And
That was
then
it.
I went off.
So you ended up mixing that night instead of the other guy coming in?
No,
Oh,
we
you-
let the other guy mix that night. And then he would,
Push faders.
by the time the stereo bus would be overloading, everything would be overloading. There were kids, all sound engineers ought to realize this. That was a powerful show, powerful music,
Yeah.
powerful show,
Yeah.
bordering on too loud. And I remember one night at the console as the show was over, and this little group of girls was talking, they're teenagers talking to somebody there, and I overheard them, and they were saying that they really like Queensryche, that said some other heavy metal act. I like Queensryche.
Yeah.
And they were naming some other heavy metal groups that were coming to town, and they were just like goo goo gaga, wanting it to happen. You know, can't wait till it happens. So I'm going to my mind. These are heavy metal
Sure.
fans.
Yeah.
So I said, excuse me, I want to ask you a question. You're teenagers. You like these groups you just mentioned. Was this show tonight not loud enough? Too loud? Over the top? Oh, this was so loud, it was unbelievable. Wow.
This is when they let the other guy mix.
Yeah. Now, that again is a sign and something that I believe, you know, if we don't take a poll and listen to the people that listen to the show,
Yeah.
who are you serving?
Exactly.
You know, we're trying to do the best for the artists, but if these people don't come back and they're blown away and they're not going to come back again,
Right.
and I hear that from so many people as I was getting into my 40s and 50s and a lot of reunion tours going out, and I had a lot of friends that I know really played well and good musicians, and I'm not talking about in the industry, I'm talking about they did other jobs and they go see bands. And I said, so-and-so's coming to town or whatever. I'm not going to go see. I saw this reunion tour is the worst thing I ever saw.
Yeah.
Worst thing I ever heard.
Right.
I'm not going to spend that kind of money, $300 to, you know, take a date, have something to eat and get a T-shirt,
Yeah.
and then walk out disappointed with what I heard. And most of the time, the main complaint is it's too loud.
Yeah.
So I go, there's a lot to be learned from the people
Absolutely.
that come and listen to your show. So that was interesting. So I stayed out with Prince for a month doing that very thing. I
Okay.
set the system up, tune it, he'd push it to the max, and then we had a private plane that we flew on, and then we played a show in Dallas, and when the plane landed in Dallas, I got off the plane after being there a month, and I went up to the manager and said, this is my home. I think I'll just be going home now. And he said, what? And I said,
Yeah.
I'm just done. This is
What's
a
the
little
point?
weird.
Yeah.
I'd had some other discussions with Prince, and it was pretty cool, but it was hard to mend or to do that. And I think we would have got along really well.
Absolutely.
If it wasn't for that bizarre introduction. I think I'd have been mixing him up to his death, quite honestly.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Just because I had that much admiration for what he did, and I felt I could do the job. So, but it's just real unfortunate.
Yeah,
things
absolutely.
like that happen.
Well, you talking about surveying the audience. You did a little bit of that with Jackson Browne. Tell me about that when you were checking on.
Wow, you really are getting some amazing homework. Are these stories that I told you at one time years ago?
No. I had to find out about some of this stuff. You know.
I was so into that A lot of people.
Well, it should be done.
Yeah. And I think really it started one night with Linda Ronstadt, where we were playing a theater in Las Vegas, where they had a severe sound level restriction. It was something silly. Most of the time we could edge by it or whatever, but Peter Asher, who tells me to do it, I do it. He says, this is one we need to stay. And it was something ridiculous. It was like 80 dB at the house or something. I go, if I don't even turn on the PA, we're going to be busted. You know, it's going to be louder than that with what's coming off stage. So I talked with the band. It was a very good band. They wanted to be good out front. We'll work together. They turned down. Went out and did this show. After 2 songs, I hated it. And I just go like, man, this is... And the 3rd song, it's like, you know... 4th song, you know, I'm hearing every note of every instrument on that stage. Because I knew them all well.
Yeah.
I'm hearing everybody. I won't punch, but I ain't getting it. But
yeah.
I'm hearing everybody. And at the end of that show, I've never had so many compliments in my career, I don't think. When people were leaving and were packing up, doing everything, packing up, just one after the other. It's an incredible show. It wasn't so loud, and we heard everything. It was really tasteful and really nice. Thank you. It's really funny that on the bus later tonight, the LD who was sitting on the other side of the room from me, the lighting director, was getting the same thing. People were going by him.
Thinking he was the audio guy.
It sounded so good tonight, whatever you did. And he goes, and so I've never had that many compliments. I never have at one setting. And, you know, that gives you an example. Look what happened here. So with that, who is it?
Jackson Browne.
I just wanted to know, and I often wonder, why don't management companies do this? But anyway, and it also came from when I go out with an artist and I really love their music and their repertoire and their you know, and I go, why aren't you playing this song in the set? That's one of my favorite songs. Well, we don't think it's... Okay, well, okay. So I started this thing with Jackson Browne route for a really long period of time. And so I got a little notebook, and spiral notebook, and I put a pen in it. And whenever I finished dinner, eating catering, I would go back out into the audience, out to the console, and I started going to the audience as the audience started coming in. And I looked for couples. I'd always look for couples. Now, this is how wound up I am. Some of them might be on the bus playing road games or whatever, I don't know. But and I'd sit down with them, and I said, look, you know, I show them a pass. I said, I work with Jackson Browne. I'm just curious. This nothing to win here, nothing. Write down 5 songs that you hope Jackson is going to play tonight.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Then write them down. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, and enjoy the show. I find another couple, and I said, would you do the same? Everybody would do it.
Yeah.
Everybody would do it. And I wouldn't look at it. I did this for about, I don't know, a week and a half, 2 weeks. Probably got 10 shows down. I don't know, something like that. And I think I even got more than that when it was all over with. And then now, look through all of this.
Yeah.
And see that there's a similar song asked for several times that he's not playing. And Jackson is always one that's been that I thought it's great. You know, actually it elongated many shows, but in a good way, because you never get enough of him anyway. But it's like, you know, somebody would shout out the name of the song, and he'll stop what he's doing, bring me that guitar, and he'll play it for him. I think that's wonderful of an artist doing that. So I took this back, and Russ Kunkel, who was a drummer at the time, was the first one I showed it to in the dressing room. I said, yeah, just for what it's worth. This is what I've been doing at the evenings. And he looked at that, and he said, this is incredible. He said, this is what the people are asking for, or what they really hoping for. And I said, yeah, that's kind of it. I was just curious for myself, and pointed out if Jackson. So I took it over and handed it. He said, "Have you showed it to Jackson yet?" I said, "No, I haven't." And he said, "Do it." And so I walked over and gave it to Jackson. And I don't know, maybe I caught him at a time that just maybe the timing wasn't quite so good. Jackson's never rude, ever, never, ever. True friend. And but he just might not have been. Maybe he might have had some other things on his mind. And he took the book, kind of thumbed it, closed it, handed it back to me, and said, "That's cool."
That was it.
Well, Dr. My Eyes was always on it.
Sure.
That's everybody's list. So you just X that out immediately. And then Running on Empty, everybody writes it down. You X that out.
Yeah.
But after the third or fourth choices,
that's where it gets interesting.
There'll be a couple of songs that have been there. They really want to hear that song.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. But that's how enthusiastic I would get into getting into the gig, the performance of the gig.
Right.
And I always felt that the last gig was as important as the first. If we'd be out for 3 months, and I've actually had some bands say to me, "Do we have to do a sound check again?" Yeah. We're in a different venue. We're in a different place.
Yeah.
I'm dialing you into that, and it changes every day. If we're
Doesn't
playing
matter.
a theater for 90 days,
Yeah.
well, okay, fine. Do it if you want, do it if you don't. But no, you have to do a sound check. So,
Well, let's talk about, I'm curious if you can tell me anything about Stevie Wonder, who was another genius.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I can. And how did that happen? I don't even remember how I got that. I don't.
But you were able to communicate
when
with
Superstition come out, and big time.
Oh, absolutely.
And I guess I was just assigned to it. I don't know. But anyway, I'm mixing it, and I meet him. A wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person. Again, I've been so blessed in working with such great people, real people. I tell students again, I think 97% of the 32 multi-platinum artists that I work with, they're all just like you and I. They just met an incredible amount of success and stardom. And they want to talk. They want to know about your family.
Yeah.
They'd like to know about some news, or, it doesn't have to be all gig.
Yeah.
It's a bonding thing,
Sure.
that we become to know each other.
Did he communicate with you? He communicated good with you about mixing?
No, didn't tell me a thing about mixing it. Just left it up to me, and those were fun shows, and it really great band and great time. And his brother Calvin was on the tour then. If I remember, Calvin was around 19, maybe, or less. I think he was in his teens.
Wow.
That would have been 76, 75, roughly in that time period. And I remember getting the word as we were driving to the venue that Stevie had a car wreck, was in a car wreck.
Wow.
And he was in critical condition. And I think most people don't know that, or
Yeah.
they ran in the back of a log truck.
Wow.
And so he was severely injured. The tour is over with, is what we're telling you. It's just done.
Yeah.
It ain't a matter of him getting out of the hospital. He might not get out of the hospital. Wow, it was a shocker.
Yeah.
And so we all went home from that. What was funny was Calvin would come out to the console, little teenage brother, he's looking for something to do, and so I'd be sitting there working, and he'd just sit down beside me, not say a word, just sit down beside me, start grabbing stuff and turning it. And if he was doing something good, I'd say, well, thanks,
Yeah.
But I'm watching him, and I thought,
Yeah.
But this is Stevie Wonder's little brother,
Right.
So what am I going to do? And this went on for 2 or 3 nights.
Really?
And then the manager come up to me one night and said, "Calvin out there touching them knobs?" I said, "Yes." "Well, you slap him. He ain't supposed to be doing that." I said, "I ain't going to slap him. You do it." And so he stopped it, after that. But he's perfectly welcome if he wanted to give me some musical input. I love musical input.
Sure.
Give me something.
Yeah.
And let's make this better. But anyway, after the recovery, there's a lot of news at the time about that car wreck. And then, so a year later, I get a call at Choco Stevie Wonder is doing a gig in Madison Square Garden. And what he had done, he had recovered enough to play, and he wanted to play.
Yeah.
It wasn't a tour. It was just a show.
Yeah.
One-time thing, Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Sold out immediately.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, we got the word at Shoko on a Thursday for a Saturday show.
Oh, wow.
And Show goes,
Yeah.
we can't get the crew together and get the system up there in that time.
Yeah.
And so they go, well, we want Alan Branton, who's the LD, they've been working with Shoko with me, and we want Buford. Can you do that? Yeah, we can get them on the plane tomorrow. Okay. So it's one of the few times ever that Shoko subbed out that gig to Clare Brothers.
Oh, wow.
And then C Factor did the lights. And so there I go out and getting the console set up for sound check, get things going. And somebody in the organization come up to me and said, Stevie wants to see you in the dressing room. And I said, okay, cool. And I go back there, and I walked in. I figured he wouldn't remember me. I just couldn't see how to remember me, even though we had contact. But and so I went back, and it's the coolest thing I've ever had done for me in my life. I wished only I could have had a video, or had phones now. The phones we have now.
Yeah, exactly.
A video of it. But he's sitting there with two spoons. And you know how you take the two spoons and you put them together and start this rhythm thing?
Yeah, yeah.
Started getting this groove together. He's got this little clicky. And he goes, Buford, it's so great to have you back with us again. Wow, man, just do the stuff you were doing when we were back the last time and rock out with us again, man. Great to have you back.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And if I could have had that, he finished the tune out, we shook hands, and
wow,
went out in front of the house.
Pretty incredible.
Had a fun time, and it was a good show, and then that was the last time I saw him. I don't think he put together a tour for a while after that, and I don't know if we were contacted or not. I don't know. I'd probably left Shoko at that time period. I don't know, but that was the last time I saw him.
I got
It was a wonderful experience.
Let's talk about Eric Clapton. You were part of his Unplugged concert, MTV concert. That was a pretty big event.
Yes, it was. I come to find out from the BBC an interview that they talked to me on that was his biggest selling record of all of his records.
Wow.
And what a concept. That was the first of the MTV Unplugged. And we... Eric was another that gave me total freedom, and not necessarily that I wanted it.
Yeah.
I'd love to have some exchange in what's going on here, but what a band. And they were incredible. We rehearsed with George Harrison at the rehearsal center at a movie lot outside of London. And wow, again, they bake the cake, I serve it.
Yeah.
And went real well. I don't know, it'd only been a year or two, I don't know the exact time, when Eric lost his son. I was real hesitant. I don't know. I just know this guy's been through some really tough times. And I have this thing that I've explained over and over and over about wanting to communicate with my artist and know them and make improvements and show weaknesses and make it better. And we just weren't able to establish that for one reason or another. And it was, I think that he knew me. I think there was some fear there from parts of the management. The acoustic thing was, different for all of us. So it was like, but we were in a studio in a small environment, so it was fairly easy to reproduce, very difficult to reproduce, as we did later, that in arena.
Sure.
The show in there went off tremendously well, and I mic'd all the instrument. Russ Tittelman was there as a producer from RCA, and I did all the miking, but I mixed for the people in the studio. And when I mic'd everything, and I tried some routines, and Eric, for one, had said, I think the way we bonded pretty well is that I had mic'd his Ramirez guitar in a way that he hadn't seen before. And I learned this in an article years before Mix Magazine became Mix Magazine, and it was REP, Recording Engineer Producer, which I'd read since the early 70s, on how to mic an acoustic guitar. One was to put a microphone on the floor as a PZM principle and play at a 45-degree angles to get the most natural sounding of that acoustic guitar. And we're talking about a gut string and micing pianos, and one with a second that was approved by these many engineers who listened to these different recordings, recorded this a different way, was setting the microphone almost where it is right now, pointing down as the artist plays the guitar like this. And I hadn't really seen that one before. And I tried it in my studio, and it worked out tremendously well for a natural sound of the guitar. When we take a guitar, an acoustic guitar, for instance, you could take a grand piano, we mic the grand piano inside on rock and roll tours, and we shut the lid. Well, do you know the sound that's being generated in there with that lid closed? Nobody's ever heard it. Right. Can we find anybody that's been able to crawl inside a grand piano with the lid closed and hear all the reflections from the harp to the top to the sides? It sounds horrible.
Right.
It's meant to open up. It's meant to project to a certain degree, but in live rock and roll, it's more difficult to do. So I was able to do that kind of miking on Eric, and then on the guitar, I wanted to try this routine because we were low level, and I knew I could do it. And what it does is every musician that I tried it in my studio would all make the same comment, that as soon as they hear that, they thought it was weird where you got that microphone. Well, I don't listen to the microphone with my ear in the hole of the guitar nor on the strings of the neck. And they go, that kind of sounds like I hear it. And I said, that's the point.
Yeah.
You put this microphone, it's right by your ear.
Yeah.
So you're kind of hearing it the way the player hears it. And that's why most players will listen to that technique and readily agree to it. Yeah. And so when Eric saw it like that, he go, I've never seen that done before. And he said, no, very politely, very nicely. And he said, I tend to want to move it out a little bit. And I said, go right ahead. Andy Fairweather Lowe's guitar was done the same way. He was playing a Ramirez too. See, they just didn't want any gum or pickup or tape or anything put on their guitars, and I certainly well understood. I know what a Ramirez is and how much it costs, and I said, fine. So I got him to nudge it back a little bit. Well, anyway, we do a pre-taping, a pre-recording, and Eric and Russ both go out in the truck and listen. And Eric came back to me and says, that guitar sounds amazing. Kind of once again, it's kind of like I know my guitar. And I said, well, isn't that cool, then? Isn't that cool? I mean, this isn't a pronounced way of doing things that people do it. I said, I try to use that technique a lot in my miking. Listen to the instrument first. Don't do it because Bob did it or so-and-so did it or he did it or, you know, somebody makes this microphone. This is for a kick drum. Well, is it? Is it really? Is it going to make a kick drum sound better than any other microphone out there? I like to know my microphone choices, and I'll choose what I want it to sound. Somebody say, what's your favorite kick drum mic? I don't know. Show me the kick drum first. And how big it is, how it's padded, wood beater, felt beater. I'll decide which microphone I want to put on it after all of that. Well, Eric was really thrilled with this guitar. Thrilled to the point of it to where after the show was over with, he had called me back in the dressing room, and he said, can you do this live? If we're playing, which we were, going to play some live venues and stadiums, all arenas. And he says, can you get the level micing it that way because we want to do this. It was so fun, and we want to play 3 songs out of our rock show.
Right.
And I said, I don't think I can do that. I don't think I can get the gain before feedback. I said, unless you make an audience, you make a notification to the audience that things are going to come down a level, because they will come down a level. It'll be more acoustic.
Yeah.
Okay. They'll hear it, but
Yeah.
it'll be lower.
Yeah.
But if they're not informed, they're going to be thinking, something wrong with the PA, something wrong with the PA, turn it up, turn it up again. He was a little reluctant to do that, but he did it.
Yeah.
He did it. The first night we tried it, good size arena, full out Choco PA. I had no idea if I could do it. We tried it at sound check, seemed to work, level down, and we did it, and it came off wonderfully.
Awesome.
I was still able to reduce to an acoustic level that is slightly amplified,
Yeah.
but everybody can hear it. They're just not
Yeah.
blinking their eyes to it, chest pounding.
Yeah.
Okay, so it worked out quite well, and we did quite well. I think there was some. I really look back on that. I think I could have been mixing Eric still. And
Yeah.
really, I can't mix everybody all the time. But
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
a lot of them that I would like to stay with longer. But
Be sure to come back to the channel for part 3 of our conversation with BUFORD Jones. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the episode, please give us a thumbs up, and we welcome your comments. Check out more of the Road Dog Project here on YouTube, and follow on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Come on, Leon.